Have you ever been in a meeting, a one-on-one meeting, and it might be with someone like your mentor, your boss, or also a family member, and you've sat down with them and you've told them what's going on, and you've explained a little bit about the situation, the circumstance, and you've spoken maybe for a little while, about 10 to 15 minutes, and then to which the mentor or your boss or manager or in fact family member responds, and all of a sudden they're giving you all this advice, but the advice doesn't really resonate, the advice doesn't really match, it doesn't really link up with what you actually talked about in your problem. And you kind of walk away a little bit confused, a little bit annoyed, maybe a little bit misunderstood, because you kind of laid out your problem or what you perceive to be the issue in the first little bit, and then all of a sudden you just got barraged with a whole lot of information, a whole lot of advice, and you kind of walk away feeling a bit overwhelmed and misunderstood. On the contrary, you might be a manager, you might be an employer, and you've sat down with a person who you believe in, you want the best for. You might have been a family member, and you've tried to connect with someone and invested time in them, and they've shared their issue with you and spoken about what's been going on, and to which you've responded, and you've really responded with your best advice. When in actual fact, weeks and months later, they haven't really heeded your advice. This is the Bender effect. And what we're going to explore is basically the unconscious. There was a hypnotherapist in the mid-90s who did some research into this, and his findings suggested that 80% of who we are is our unconscious, the person that is within us, but we don't actually consciously do things. Everything's based on automatic and habits that we've already trained ourselves to do. So 20% of what we do is actually conscious decisions. Sometimes in the first 15 minutes of discussions, we start to discuss what we know, and that's based on our conscious. That's what we see around us, and that's how we evaluate things, based on what we see and understand. Then what can happen as a result of that is people will actually respond to that and actually bring their best and bring their response. But the actual problem doesn't lay in the conscious. The problem actually lays in the unconscious. So as we look here, we'll actually start to see that there's two things that's happening. There's two doors that's actually happening. There's a big door and a small door. And what will happen is that people will try and jam all their advice, all their input into a small door, which is only 20%, and it's probably only touches very, very marginally on the actual issue. The real issue is in the 80%, the unconscious, the things that you can't see or don't necessarily understand why you do, but you do them none the same. So as a manager, so as a leader, a person who's getting around people, this is something we need to tap into. We treat our workers almost like robots and expect things. Obviously we do want the best for them, but in considering this, it's kind of like we're trying to jam all this information into them, but not really understanding at all where they're coming from. And this is why we need to really tap into their unconscious. As a young person, as a person who is kind of the mentoree, or the person who is the employee, the person who is sitting down with people, if you have been misunderstood in the past, if you have had advice given to you and walked away feeling overwhelmed, this is why. Because what you've done is you've shared what you can based on your conscious level. They've shared a whole lot of advice to you, trying to help you, but in reality it hasn't really settled with you, it hasn't really resonated with you. The reason why is because they didn't really tap into your unconscious. This level below here, this 80% that really determines who we are and the decisions that we make. This is why it's so important. When we tap into this area of the unconscious, that is when we really start to shuffle things around and make some serious changes. If we make changes on the surface, on the conscious level, all we're doing is we're just changing things on the exterior. The real problems lay deep below. 80% of who we are and what we represent is in our unconscious, and that's below deck. That's the things that are happening automatically, often without our permission. And when we tap into this, that's when real changes will take place. And really that's why I call this the Bender effect. Thank you. Hope you have a good week. On my website, there's a great resource for you. It's all about getting you from where you are to where you need to be. Check it out. Thank you. God bless.